UFC Prague, O2 Arena, Czech Republic. This weekend, I fucked up the times, of course. Prelim starting 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Main card starting, I think they said 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time. Thiago Santos, Blachowicz. Come on, just text me. Excuse me, everybody. You gotta respond back to me. You gotta. Whatever. I gotta read the text while I'm live streaming, But Thiago Santos, Blachowicz. Santos 12-5 in the UFC. 3-fight winning streak right now. Kevin Holland, his light heavyweight debut with Eric Anders, who was also making his light heavyweight debut, and then just most recently against Jimmy Manuwa. So he's definitely on a roll. He was one of those guys that really did well with the move to light heavyweight from middleweight. And he's fighting a guy, Blachowicz, who is a powerhouse. He's gotten a lot of good wins recently, the Bulldog choke and such. He had a rough 2-4 start when he first got into the UFC. But right now he's on a 4-fighting winning streak. Devin Clark. I think Kenny went down to middleweight, but he's doing really good at middleweight. Jared Kenny, Jimmy Manuwa also, and Nikita Krylov. So he is also on a roll. He's got one more fight than Santos in his winning streak. If I'm going to put my pick down there, it's going to be Thiago Santos. No other reason except for I think he's going to knock Blachowicz out. I think Blachowicz is going to be looking to clinch a lot early in the fight, and I think Santos is going to lay the kicks on him, the body kicks, leg kicks, pretty heavy in the first round, and I don't say first, second round, somewhere in there, but Santos knockout. Stefan Struve, Marcos Rogero de Lima. Marcos, we're going to call him Stefan Struve, fighting his last fight on his contract. So he's fighting like a do or die type situation. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. So, of course, if he loses, he would have been on a die situation anyway. He got losses to Alexander Volkov, Andrei Arlovsky, Marcin Tybura. 7 out of his 11 knockouts. 7 out of his 11 losses in his career are by knockout. And then 17 out of his 28 wins are by submission. So he's a tall, lanky guy, 7 feet tall. He's good at slapping on submissions. And he's fighting a guy in De Lima who's also great on the ground. But he's 6'2". He's 8 inches shorter than Struve. Obviously, the reach will be somewhat similar of a differential. Before entering the UFC, he fought as a middleweight. Then he fought as a heavyweight on Tough. Returned to light heavyweight. Fought 4 good fights at light heavyweight. Then missed weight at light heavyweight 210 and 215 2 times before moving back up to heavyweight. So he's had a little bit of a I guess off going there. He in the 2 fights that he missed weight, he beat Jeremy Kimmel and then lost by submission to OSP in the 2 light heavyweight fights that he was overweight, and that says something because OSP is a bigger light heavyweight. Certainly could fill out a light heavyweight role, but still a great grappler in De Lima. I think his last fight was his return to heavyweight, and that was last November. I want to say, did he win or did he lose? Can't remember. But it was his return to heavyweight, so it'll be his second fight back at heavyweight. Taking on Longman Stefan Struve. I got Struve by knockout, I think. it's weird to give Stefan Struve a knockout prediction, but that's what I'm going to go with. I think he's going to be able to get in there and land with his long punches straight down the middle, and then Dan Lima's going to be shooting for the takedowns and maybe some knees, elbows, and stuff like that from in the clinch from Stefan Struve, and it's going to be a short night. Ambulante, and then we're going to try to pronounce this one time, and then we're going to call him Michelle for the rest of the time. But Michelle Olenjosic. Volante, Strikeforce veteran, came to the UFC from Strikeforce when it was bought. 7-7 since joining the UFC. His last fight was in October. That was a decision. He won a decision to Ed Herman. 2-2 in his last 4, and his last 4 fights are all split decisions. So all very close fights in his last 4. Michel is 12-2 MMA record. So he's new, but he's on a pretty big streak here. His last fight was a no contest all right. So let's reverse. His last fight was his debut in the UFC in 2017, late 2017. So a little over a year ago. His debut was a no contest because he popped for a performance enhancing substance. And this is his return fight. It's against John Volante. And classic striker grappler type thing going to go on, and I'm always going to choose with the striker, John Volante, second round, or maybe matter of fact, John Volante decision. I'm going to go with over Michelle. Liz Carmouche, Lucy Pudilova. Pudilova 12-2 in the UFC. I'm bugging. Oh, 2-2 in the UFC. Sorry, I got my notes fucked up. She's 2-2 in the UFC. She has a pro record of 8-3. So mid-tier Lucia Pudilova. Hometown. She's fighting the hometown of Prague. A lot of strong emotions coming out of the crowd for her. Liz Carmouche, a veteran of the sport, has not fought since last July, which is, I guess, it's that 7 months ago, a little over half a year ago. 0-2 against Alexis Davis, which not her last fight, but the fight before that was a loss to Alexis Davis. She's 0-2 against Alexis Davis, both by decision. She defeated Valentina Shevchenko in her pre-UFC days, 2010. 12-6 as a pro, Liz Carmouche. I like Lucia Pudilova, and I think she has a great all-around game. And I think her striking is going to be way too much for Liz Carmouche in this fight. Lucia Pudilova we'll go decision again, just because a lot of these times, especially with the women, it's hard because the only time I've ever seen a woman get starch clean knocked out was Karolina Kowalkiewicz getting knocked out by Jessica Andrade. That was cold, man. That was sick. And then the last fight, I think that's on the main card, Peter Yan and Peter Yan and John Dodson. John Dodson, 20-10 record. I believe all 10 of those losses coming by decision. He never had one loss that was finished. John Dodson, still to this day, not been finished. His last fight was a loss by decision to Jimmy Rivera back in September. He's got wins over. He's going really back and forth here and there since the last. I think since his loss to Demetrius Johnson in 2015. He's had win loss, with wins over Wineland, Eddie Wineland, Manny Gambarian, and Pedro Munoz, and then losses to John Lineker, Marlon Moraes, and Jimmy Rivera as of late. Peter Yan's is a Russian Mike Tyson, is 3-0 in the UFC, 11-1 pro record. One loss was a split decision loss, so it was a close fight. in the one loss that he did have. Um, and then his most recent fight was when he knocked out, where he had a TKO over Douglas Silva de Andrade back in December. So only about a 2 month layoff for him. He's ready to get back in there. And I got the Russian Mike Tyson by knockout first round. And I think John Dodson has never been knocked out, and this may be a first for him. But it's going to be a great night if that's the case. Somewhat kind of thin card. Another couple of good fights that are not going to be on the main card. Carlo Persola Jr., Dwight Grant, Daniel Tamar is going to be fighting Chris Fishgold, and Rustin Kabilov is going to be fighting Carlos Ferreira. Of course, you got that weird start time of in the morning. I unfortunately be working, so we will hopefully get home in time to catch the main card because that would be a real shame to miss out. I want to get that back at least in time for the Pedion fight. But strong main card, kind of thin prelims. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Great card this past weekend in the Phoenix first fight, first card on ESPN. I think they brought out a great cast. Um, had a bunch of great fights. Vicente Luque, Brian Barberina, obviously stealing the show. Um, that crap happened in the end, but definitely Luque and Barberina was the headline in my book. Bellator 217 will also be this Saturday. James Gallagher, Stephen Graham, Charlie Ward, friend of Conor McGregor, will also be on the card fighting Jamie Stevenson. As of late, they have announced an interim title at 236. I think UFC 236. They haven't had a location marked down for that, but they're going to put the interim title for Kevin Gastelum, Israel Adesanya at middleweight because Robert Whitaker is going to be out for the foreseeable future. So they're going to put an interim title down right there. Rose Namajunas came out and said that she was offered the fight with Jessica Andrade for UFC 235, which implicates that UFC was attempting to make UFC 235 a 3-title fight card with John Jones, Anthony Smith, Tyron Woodley, Kamaru Usman, and Rose Namajunas, Jessica Andrade. Rose Namajunas declined that fight and wanted to fight Jessica Andrade in Brazil, Andrade's home country of Brazil, at UFC 237, and that's a gangster move. If Chael Sonnen was talking right now, he'd say that's a fucking gangster move. And I hope Rose wins for that. That was a gangster fucking move, and I hope she wins for that, just for that move. Scott Coker announced the featherweight Grand Prix coming to Bellator. Big names: Taiwan Claxton, Gaston Bolaños, um, Aaron Pico, Patricio, Pitbull, whatever, Daniel Strauss, couple of 16 man. It was a good amount of people in the featherweight one, and they're going to try to get a champion out of that. But I like the Grand Prix shit, man. I think the UFC should do that, but I don't think the Grand Prix should be for the top guys. I think the Grand Prix should be for a chance at the number one contender. I think people should fight. And then from like maybe what you need, 8, from 15 to 7, or whatever that is, those guys are in a tournament. Whoever wins that tournament immediately gets a shot at the number one contender. They fight for the number one contender fight. If they win that fight, they're fighting for the belt. So you win a tournament just to get another fight. It doesn't make a lot of sense for the fighters, but that makes more sense on the sense of you don't really tie up the top of the division for, X amount of time because this fight has to happen before this fight happens. This fight has to happen before this fight happens. Especially with a 16-man tournament, if you're trying to have everything kind of go in order, it's going to be pretty damn hard to space out 16 fights. A lot of them probably going to be on the same card. I don't know. I'm excited to see how they play it out. Um, I hope it works out for them. Obviously, nothing this weekend. We had a live fight companion for the Phoenix one. Everybody go check that out. I'll try to see if I could drop a link um, to the other one in the description. Maybe click on that and go check out the live. We were having a smoke show, as people have called it in my early days of YouTubing. Um, Next Tuesday, definitely we'll be back. I think the next event after this one is John Jones again. Anthony Smith, 235. Obviously, we went over the two title fights. Kamaru Usman, Tyron Woodley, John Jones, Anthony Smith. Also on the card, Pedro Munoz, Cody Garbrandt, Zabit, Magomed Sharapov, um, Jeremy Stevens. Bunch of great fights on that card. And let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's see what this Prague card has to offer. But then let's get ready for some John Jones. Um, be back next Tuesday, guys. Sure, when I got to write a couple articles still before I go to sleep, and it's getting late. So next week, guys.